Alrighty, welcome back chemistry students. Today's lesson is going to focus on adding and subtracting with sig figs as well as multiplying and dividing with sig figs. This is where things get pretty confusing, so make sure you pay close attention to this video, and I am again going to post an additional supplemental video in case you are extra confused and need extra help. So the rule with adding and subtracting sig figs is to use the total number of decimals in your final answer. So we all know how to count how many decimals are in something, and so that's going to be something important to do when adding and subtracting with sig figs. So let me take a moment and write these 3 example problems on the board behind me so we can go over them together. Alrighty, so let's do some of these practice problems together. So the first problem we're going to look at is 342.3 plus 242.302. Now remember, the rule for adding and subtracting with sig figs is to use the total number of decimals in the final answer. So after I said what I just said, I realized it was a little bit confusing. So let me walk you through how we're going to solve these problems. The first answer, again, is 342.3 plus 242.302. So how many decimals are in this answer, or in this number? A single decimal. So we have 1 decimal right here. Whereas in this one, we have 3 numbers in the decimal places. What we're going to do is we're going to have an answer with 1 decimal place because it's the least number of decimals that we have. So let's solve this. We get 342.3 plus 242.302. We get 584.602. That's our answer before we take sig figs into account. If we're following the rules for adding and subtracting problems, we notice we're adding here, so we need to use the least number of decimals in our answer. We only have 1 decimal in this first number, so we can only have 1 decimal in our answer. So 6 is the only decimal we can have. So our answer is going to be 584.6. That is the correct number of sig figs for that question. In the second problem, we're looking at the question 2.3333 minus 9. The number 2.3333 has 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places, and 9 has 0. So how many decimals can be in our final answer? Correct, 0. So if we do 2.3333 minus 9, we get negative 6.6667. Now, we can only have 0 decimals in our final answer. So is our number going to be 6, negative 6? Is that going to be our answer? No, we need to take rounding into account. So remember, when you round, you're going to look at the next number. If that number is greater than 5, you're going to round up. And if that number is less than 5, you're going to round down. And if it is 5, again, you round up. So this is greater than 5, so we're going to round this number up. So our final answer is going to be negative 7. I want you to take a moment and try to solve this final question on your own. This is a plus sign. 2043.22 plus 43.4432. Using the correct number of significant figures. Pause the video at this time and then resume it when you're ready. Alrighty, so this first number has 2 decimal places, while this second number has 4. So we know that our final answer can only have 2 sig figs. When I add these together, I get 2,086.6632. If I'm going to round that to 2 sig figs, or 2 decimal places, it's pretty easy. That we have a 6 and a 6. So we have 2086.66 as our final answer. So that's how you're going to add and subtract using sig figs. Multiplying and dividing gets a little bit different. So the rule with multiplying and dividing is you're going to use the least number of sig figs in your final answer. So we're not looking at decimals anymore. We're looking at the total number of significant figures. Again, give me one moment while I write these numbers on the front board. Alrighty, let's do some practice with solving these problems. So remember, we're going to be looking at the total number of sig figs and using the least number of sig figs in our final answer. So we need to count how many sig figs are in this first number, 3.29. Remember, these are all whole numbers, so each of these is significant. So we have 1, 2, 3 significant figures. This one gets a little bit trickier because there's a 0 involved. So we know that 3, 2, 4, and 3 are all significant because they're whole numbers, and then we need to look at the 0. This looks at rule 3 for our rules, and we know that zeros are significant if they're trailing behind a decimal. This is behind the decimal, so we know that it's a significant, so we have 5 sig figs in this answer, or in this number. When we do this multiplication, we get 3.29 times 3.2430. We will get 10.6697. Now, we can only have 3 sig figs in our final answer because that is our least number that we started with. So we know that we need to round. We need to include the 1 and the 0, and we need to figure out what number comes next. Do we use a 6, or do we round that up or down? It looks like since this is a larger than 5 number, we're going to round that up, so we're going to get 10.7 as our answer with 3 significant figures. For our next practice problem, how many significant figures are in the number 120? We know that the 1 and the 2 are significant because they're whole numbers, and the 0 is trailing, but is it trailing a decimal? No, so it's not significant. So we have 2 significant figures here. 12.322 has all whole numbers, so they're all significant. So we have 5 significant figures there. And now we're ready to solve. So 120 times 12.322 gives us 1,478.64. I can't read. We need to round that to 2 significant figures because that's the least number that we had. If we round that to 2 significant figures, we know we can only use the 1 and the 4. Are we going to round the 4 up or keep it the same? So notice we have a 7, so we're going to bump it up to 1, 5. This is where things get tricky. Is 15 the same as 1,478? No. So we need to add those 2 extra zeros where in place of the 7 and the 8 because we need to have the number 1,500, not the number 15. So 1,500 is your answer with 2 sig figs because we know those zeros don't count. Please pause for a moment and try to solve the third problem. This first number has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 significant figures, while again this number 1.2 only has 2. If we plug that into our calculator, we get the answer 244.411. Again, we can only have 2 significant figures, so we know that we get the 2, and we have a 4 followed by another 4. This is not greater than 5, so we're not going to round up, so we're going to keep it at a 4 and add a 0 to make it 240. Alrighty, there is another supplemental video just like I said. If you're still struggling with adding and subtracting, tune into your next video to find out what your homework is for the day. Thank you.